Welcome to another episode of Stand on Guard. When I come back, we're going to be discussing something that you all want to see. How Canada is spending your tax dollars in the black hole of Kyiv. When we come back.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Thanks for watching, and like Sasha the Cat always said, please subscribe if you haven't already, resubscribe if you need to, like the station, give it a thumbs up. Let's beat the YouTube algorithm and Trudeau's censorship. You know, we have accumulated hundreds of subscribers in the last 3 days after I appealed because we had lost so many overnight. People were being unsubscribed. And for no reason. I complained about it officially and through official channels. But I appealed to you, my viewers, my audience, and said, please do something about it. And you did. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to be talking about the black hole of Kyiv today. And you're saying, okay, what is the black hole of Kyiv? Well, the black hole of Kyiv is the money we're pouring into Ukraine. Billions of dollars. And this is just Canada we're talking about today. We could be talking about the US, which is spending the lion's share of the money that's going to Ukraine to keep this war going, keep Ukrainians dying, keep the military-industrial complex rich and prosperous, and making hundreds of billions of dollars off this war, off the deaths. And they've done this for, my God, over 100 years. We know that. These merchants of death continue to do this. And I'm an ex-military guy, but I don't like to see people die needlessly. I don't like to see wars that aren't necessary. I don't like to see people go to war and die because alternatives were not examined. And they haven't been, and they aren't being in the case of Ukraine. This is just a fundamental failure, not of diplomacy, but of common sense. We've got people constantly saying we're fighting for democracy. Ukraine is not a democracy. They just canceled their presidential election. It's run by a bunch of corrupt politicians and oligarchs. And you know, the last installment the United States sent them included $9 billion of immediate cash infusion. It's gone. The corrupt politicians have already deposited in their Swiss bank accounts. I'm not making that up. Former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter has got his ear to the ground in Ukraine, and he is reporting that this week. So without further ado, I want you to watch a video to start this, and this will show you what they're up to in Ukraine, just what they're up to in terms of, I hate to use the words because Justin Trudeau has completely warped their meaning, but the misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda that Ukraine is putting out about, and you'll see this, about the American election, the presidential election. Let's have a look.
My name is Olesya, and I'm a former employee of the so-called Troll Fabric in Kyiv, Ukraine. We also had French, German, and Italian departments. I actually heard some other offices in Kyiv were hiring people who spoke Finnish and also Swedish and Estonian. About a half year ago, our main chef in command, Andrei Borisovich Yermak, paid us a visit. I'm pretty sure you have heard of the head of President Zelensky office. Really, it was an unusual event for the main figure behind our project to come visit the office. So he came with some English-speaking officials who were introduced to us as the American partners. We were told that they were very important guests, but no further details. Some of my colleagues told me that they were probably CIA, the American mindset, and main social and politics issues. Then we were occupied with the topics for the job, which sounded like this. Unlike Trump, Biden is a smart and experienced politician. Unlike Trump, Biden will never betray NATO partners. Trump will alienate our partners. Also, Biden will not abandon Ukraine, and Biden will protect democracy while Trump is Putin's puppet. I honestly tried to convince myself it's okay, since Biden is a clearly better option for Ukraine. But, it was too much for me. Some of my colleagues felt really nervous too. One thing is to work for the best interests of my country, but interfering in US politics is a whole other thing.
Now, we're going to go through a lot of slides here. I'm not going to read them verbatim, but we're going to go through these. And I should probably remove myself here. But this, and we actually asked you, the audience, did you want to go through exactly spent in Ukraine? And you said you did. Now, the most important thing about these slides is the red letters at the bottom of each slide. Canada has given $13.3 billion to Ukraine since 2022. That's not all military, and it's about 55% has been military. The rest has been civil assistance to prop up the regime. This is quite shocking. But we're going to break it down. We're going to go through the expenses, how they've actually been used. And it's a painstaking process, but this is where your tax dollars are going. Now, in budget 2024, there was more money given to Ukraine, $2.72 billion in loans and donations for Ukraine in the current fiscal year, most of which is aimed at helping President Volodymyr Zelensky's government keep the embattled country's finances afloat, the CBC says. Wouldn't it be nice if there is some money to keep Canada's embattled finances afloat? We are $40 billion more in debt after this budget 2024, after $52.9 billion more in new spending. But hey, the budget, the debt, the deficit, they all take care of themselves, don't they, according to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. April 2024, $4 billion in military assistance to Ukraine since 2022. Lists of all the equipment sent to Ukraine at this link. This funding will allow Canada to deliver military assistance to Ukraine through to 2029. What? 2029? That's 5 years. We'll have more about that later when I show you the redacted segment. But there seems to be something cooking here that's very nefarious. Let's keep going. $3.02 billion financial and military support. Canada will provide critical financial and military support to Ukraine in 2024. So this is just in 2024, including new financial support for Ukraine to meet its balance of payments and budgetary needs and stabilize its economy. Once again, where's the money for Canada to stabilize its economy and meet its budgetary needs? We're not meeting our budgetary needs. We are in deficit financing again. We're spending twice as much as we take in Canada. So this is the Trudeau logic. This is the Liberal Party logic. This is the Trudeau government logic. So the budget included. This also includes the first year of a new multi-year military assistance commitment that will enable enhanced contributions to the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, Armored Coalition, and Air Force Coalition, as well as military assistance previously committed to Ukraine that will be delivered in 2024. Let's keep going. Now let's break this down. These are billions of dollars, but what do they mean? New peace and security assistance. $45 million for demining assistance and cyber resilience. I guess that means cyber warfare. You'll see this demining appear again and again and again. Is there replication? Is this a scam? Is this sham financing? I'm beginning to wonder. $30 million support for Ukraine from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. What is CSIS giving Ukraine money for? $15 million up for grabs, though. Yeah, and there's $15 million. No, sorry, that's $30 million up for grabs. There's another 15 for the Ukrainian National Museum for the genocide, for the artificial famine that occurred there in the early 1930s. That might be the Only sane dollars we're sending here. Allocation of development funding, $15 million more for the Canada International Finance Corporation Facility for Resilient Food Systems. Once again, agriculture in Canada is in crisis mode because the carbon tax is a huge impoverishment on farmers. It is making them poorer. It is a huge burden on farmers. And the rules and regulations attached to pesticides, and specifically and worse to fertilizer, is killing Canadian agriculture. But there's lots of money to help Ukrainian agriculture, isn't there? As well as $10 million for mental health services, which we could certainly use in this country. A lot of people going crazy because of the Trudeau government. But we've got lots of money for medical assistance and dying too. And we don't want it. We don't want people to get better. We just want, well, the Trudeau government doesn't want people to get better. $10 million supporting local development and reconstruction efforts in Ukraine's Haramedas region. $4 million support to Ukraine's Reforms in Governments project. How about Canada's Reforms in Government project? No, not going to happen here. Now here's the new contributions for a total of $22.5 million from our commitment. A total commitment of $352.5 million. Now this is all just February 2024, okay? And we're breaking it down from $3 billion to $352 million to the tens of millions and the 5 to 4 and the 3.5 million figures in this. 10 million of this 352.5 million will go to the World Food Program to support immediate food needs in Ukraine. 5 million for the United Nations Refugee Agency to assist internally displaced persons and other persons of concern in meeting their basic needs. So we're going to help Ukraine with its refugees, tracking down people who have fled the country, maybe. 4 million for the Ukraine Humanitarian Fund coordinated through the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, which channels resources and humanitarian partners. 3.5 million for the International Committee of the Red Cross to promote protection, emergency relief, and other essential services. More explanation. $4 million building counter-nuclear smuggling capabilities. What does that refer to? Does Ukraine have nuclear weapons? I mean, smuggling from where to where? From where to where? It makes absolutely no sense. But this is another kicker. $4 million for gender-inclusive demining. I have no idea what that means. How can demining operations, which generally means getting mines out of the ground, have anything to do, which I've actually witnessed in Bosnia. But there were lots of mines in Bosnia. You couldn't even walk on the grass. So why are we spending $4 million for gender-inclusive demining? And we see this demining popping up constantly. $2.5 million for community-based protection and effective civil-military engagement. What does that mean? $2.4 million in demining sustainability. So we're throwing another $2.4 million over in this demining category. What does it do? What does sustainability mean? $2 million for rescue and resilience for Ukrainian civil society. German Marshall Fund. Another $2 million for the politicians. Another $2 million to prop up this corrupt government. $1.5 million Geneva International Center for Humanitarian Demining's support program. Another $1.5 million for demining. Is there replication going on here? Probably. $930,000 for strengthening truth, transparency, and democracy to counter disinformation. We saw from that video earlier what kind of disinformation Ukraine is up to. They're spewing disinformation, misinformation about the U.S. presidential election. Is this money going to that project? Is that what they're referring to here? Because they're not countering disinformation in Ukraine, they're creating it. $750,000 support for the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in Ukraine. Well, they've got biochemical weapons plants in Ukraine. We learned this early in the war. So they're not prohibiting anything. This is a sham. This is a total sham. And this slide is all about sanctions. We are increasing the sanctions on Ukraine, which have done absolutely nothing except strengthen the Russian economy. See, they're sanctions on Russia, excuse me, not Ukraine. But these sanctions have done nothing but strengthen the Russian economy and make it more powerful. They've been an utter failure. And what happens when this war is finally over? Because it will be, probably within a matter of 4 to 5 weeks. What happens to these sanctions? And there's more money for the 60 million for the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. We've already discussed that. And more money for the folks in Latvia, Canadian Forces personnel in Latvia. We learned earlier, or actually about a year ago, I did a story for the Post Millennial on this, that these people deployed to Latvia couldn't even afford or weren't even supplied with helmets. And it goes on. And there's money for the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children. Refugee legal, another 475 for the Refugee Legal Relief Fund. And on and on and on. But we're not done yet. Military equipment. What kind of military equipment have we already sent to Ukraine? In total support, it's been 7.4 billion. Like I say, it's been about 55+% of the 13.3 billion in total we have sent since 2022. 4 billion in military assistance for howitzers. We've sent them a number of Leopard tanks. Leopard 2 doesn't mean we've sent 2. We've sent about at least 6. They're all destroyed on the battlefield. The Russians have knocked them all out. There's none of these are left. And we're not getting them back. Armored combat support vehicles, not getting those back either. Hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition. Oh, yes, obviously that's gone. High-resolution drone cameras could have been destroyed too. Thermal clothing, body armor, could have been taken by the Russians. Could be in prisoner of war camps. Could have been taken off on the battlefield. Body armor, fuel, and more. $7.4 billion in total. Now, a lot of this is repetition, so I won't go into this too carefully. But once again, this shows, yes, between 2015 and 2024, Canada trained more than 40,000 members of the armed forces of Ukraine as part of this operation, of the Operation Unifier. See, United Nations operation. Now, this puts us closer to boots on the ground, puts us closer to being in combat with the Ukrainians against the Russians. Somebody in the global sphere of things wants that to happen badly. They're looking for a nuclear war here, or at least looking to put us on the brink of a nuclear war because of France making stupid and crazy statements about sending an army to Ukraine, Britain talking the same way, Canada's perilously close to it, United States is perilously close. They've got advisors on the ground in Ukraine. They're advising Ukrainian troops. They have sent the military arsenal to Ukraine being used against Russia. How dumb do they think the Russians are to not know this is direct military involvement? And finally, I'll go down to the bottom here. Of this $352.5 million, of the $3 billion, $186 million in development assistance, such as $15 million from Canada's $100 million contribution to the Canada International Finance Corporation Facility for Resilient Food Systems. $198 million in security and stabilization assistance. We could use some of that security and stabilization assistance ourselves in Canada. So this is absolutely astounding. Now we're going to go back to the video. We glimpsed it at the beginning of the broadcast. This is a segment from Redacted with Clayton Morris, and they're talking about what's in store. What's in store for Ukraine? How long is this war going to go on? Could this be another never-ending war? And what do they mean when they say we're going to make sure Donald Trump can't interfere? or intervene in the funding for Ukraine. Well, this is a great segment, and let's watch that right now.
And yet Zelensky now is working on this 10-year blank check, basically. So here's what he said on his Telegram, quote, "Today, our teams of Ukraine and the United States are working on a bilateral agreement on security," he said. We are working to commit to paper concrete levels of support for this year and for the next 10 years. It will include military, financial, political support, as well as what concerns joint production of weapons. But here's the part that really jumped out at me. He says, "Our goal is to make this agreement the strongest of all. We are discussing the specific foundations of our security and cooperation." Foundations of our security and cooperation. To me, that sounds like, I mean, when you say foundations, you're building something strong, right? You're building something that's going to last a long time, right? You're pouring concrete. You're building trenches. You're building something long. And I think Congressman Tim Burchett basically agrees. He says, when Zelensky says specific foundations, he's talking about your tax dollars. It doesn't matter how long he drags this war out if Ukraine gets rebuilt with American money.
I mean, is Ukraine the next Hawaii? The next state of the United States?
It's sanity. Biden's foolish actions could ensure war with Russia sooner rather than later. Trump's reckless and uninformed support for this new bill could convince Moscow that peace is impossible, regardless of whom Americans elect without a Russian advance to NATO's eastern border. So 10 years, this could push Russia closer. Now, if do you think Russia's going to sit back and allow this to happen? Anyway, so I want to circle back to Politico's reporting on this. You remember this a few weeks ago? This, I think, is part of this. So Trump proofing weapons for Ukraine. Allies consider moving arms groups into NATO. So this is an important story that Politico had, and it was an exclusive at the time, right? Which is this idea that we are going to put 10 years worth of monies available and weapons and aid and everything ready for Ukraine that would be Trump proof. That if Trump wanted to vote against this or stop it, that we would now have a mechanism in place to continue funneling money nonstop and weapons. So if Trump gets there and he decides he wants to end it, then we've got a thing in place already. And I think this is a lot of what things Zelensky was talking about.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about. So what Clayton and Natalie are saying here is that this could be another Afghanistan, that they want to keep this war going for 10 years longer. And they want to keep the war going even if Donald Trump becomes president. But the problem here, of course, is that the $61 billion that the United States just gave to Ukraine as part of a over $90 billion military assistance package to Ukraine, just going to say China, to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. That $61 billion was approved by Donald Trump. I don't mean he had anything to do with the actual legislative approval, but he endorsed it. He endorsed this $61 billion giveaway, this incredible cave, and this collapse of will. And the United States House Speaker Mike Johnson felt like he could do this because Donald Trump said so. Donald Trump really, really kicked his base in the face, as I said in the Substack article, by doing this. And so why do they even need to so-called Trump-proof further contributions, further aid, further assistance to Ukraine? Since Donald Trump is apparently on side now, he sees Ukraine as a vital security interest of the United States and of NATO. He has crossed that Rubicon, River Rubicon. He's crossed that border, and now he's on side with it. So how long is this war going to go on? Who's going to stop it? It's more evidence of the uniparty in the United States. And here in Canada, I'm sorry, whether you want to admit it or not, as far as foreign policy goes, we're a uniparty in Canada. The Liberals, the NDP, and the Conservative Party of Canada are all walking in lockstep on Ukraine. Poor Ukraine. We're there to defend democracy. We're there to make the world safe for democracy. We're there because they were invaded by Russia. We're there because this had nothing to do with a war that really started in 2014. This has nothing to do with how corrupt their Ukrainian regime is. This has everything to do somehow with this wonderful democratic figure named President Volodymyr Zelensky, who people have compared erroneously and ridiculously to Winston Churchill, and that this war is somehow a noble cause, a noble effort. Even though, and we've had idiots from Boris Johnson to American foreign policy advisors say that this is a great war, it's a great investment because the armaments industry is getting all the money in the United States, and it means good jobs, and because the people dying are Ukrainians, so what the hell? Nobody ever mentions, or these people never mention, that we are 2 steps away from a nuclear war where it's going to be a lot more than Russians and Ukrainians dying in this war. It's going to be NATO countries, which means Canada and the United States and Great Britain. And the club is so big now. It's a club of fools. It's such a broad-based club. Everybody in Europe is now basically a member of NATO. So the potential for conflict just escalates every time we add another member state to that organization. I used to support NATO, used to work for NATO, used to represent NATO, used to write talking points for NATO. It's an organization with a great history, but no future. It has no valid military objective anymore. It has no reason to exist anymore. It is way past its due date and should be disbanded before it causes a nuclear war with Russia. Thank you for watching today, folks. I hope that was worthwhile. And let me know if you want to see the American statistics. It's a bit of a deep dive. It's a bit of a process, to put it mildly, but I'm willing to do it. Thank you so much for watching today, and I appreciate everything you've done to support this station in the last year and a bit and in the last week. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for watching this episode of Stand on Guard and being a part of the KRAYDEN'S Right channel. If you've watched this episode to this point, you've watched it all. And that's really important for a small station like this. We always say subscribe, hit the bell, be a part of the KRAYDEN resistance. Resolve to resist. That's what we're doing. And if you become a subscriber, if you're a supporter of this station or a member through Substack, through YouTube, and now you can be a local as well, that's so important to us because I couldn't do this without you. I made a decision to become an independent journalist about a year ago because I wanted to bring all of my experience in the military, in journalism, to you. I don't promise anything I can't deliver. I don't offer clickbait. I offer truth. The truth is out there, and it's my job to bring that truth to light and to you. Thanks for being a part of the KRAYDEN'S Right resistance, and we'll see you again soon.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need a political change, but we also need to